And then we say, okay, if the circle appears on the top of the screen, let's color code it in red. And if the circle appears on the bottom of the screen, let's color code it in blue. And then when we say, okay, what is happening in the brain, where are things happening? We see this rainbow that indicates that things on the top of the screen are being thought about in the top of the brain, and then same with the bottom in blue, the bottom, and this is showing us left and right. So we can say that the octopus brain does think about the world and the visual map kind of similarly to how we're doing it. But with kind of the same movie, we can start to ask other questions, such as, is there a difference between these black and white dots? As well as, is there a difference between the size of the dots? And so these degrees are just describing how big they are. 3 degrees is small, 6 degrees medium, 12 degrees big, and then full field is the entire screen goes black or white. And essentially what we see is that when we're playing a on or a white circle, there is a low response to our big circles, but there's a much higher response to our small circles. But then with our black circles, we see the opposite. So there's a small response to our little black circles, but a big response to the medium and large ones. And that is kind of odd. We can say why is the octopus care more about the small white ones and the big black ones? And while we don't know this for sure, we can start to think about its perspective and what does the octopus see underwater. And so, underwater, if you see a shrimp or a small fish or something that if you're an octopus you're interested in eating, because of the way that light travels through water, the things that are closer to you are going to be smaller because they're closer, and they're also going to be bright white because of the way that this light is traveling. But things that are coming overhead, like predators of seagulls and seals and whales, are going to be coming overhead. They don't typically come at you from the level that you're at if you're tucked away in your coral reef. And those are going to be big black circles. And so given kind of the environment, it makes sense that they are caring more about these things than, for example, our brain does. That's not how our brain thinks about these small white and black circles. And so taking it kind of a step back of just recognizing that while this is different, it isn't necessarily wrong, right? It is a product of kind of their environment and their perspective, which kind of ties it back to the original reason that I got excited about this. And I've also started to think about perspective also within society, and when I'm starting to share science with people like you, and also people who are coming to Nerd Night. While Nerd Night is awesome and this is a lot of fun, it also is inherently self-selective, right? If you don't care about science or diving deep into a random niche topic, then you're not going to come here. And so I've really started to think about science communication from this perception-based approach, and start asking questions like, how do people from a specific background perceive research topics, right? We don't think about the black and white circles the same way the octopus does, because our background and the environment that we grew up in is different. And we can apply that to science communication as well. And same with, how does someone's perspective affect how they engage with a scientific environment? Going beyond just where they grew up, but also kind of where are they sitting right now, right? Right now we're in Book Barn, one of my favorite places to go, right? And so maybe you're a lot more perceptive to this new exciting science than if it was 9 a.m. before you had coffee and you had other things to do at work. And so one way that I've kind of approached these, or been able to develop these questions and turn them into projects, is through a big thing I'm doing called Brewing Scientist. And that essentially started with me working with a local brewery named Kazi, and just approaching them and being I want to put octopus facts on beer labels. And they were sure, have fun. And then I was like, ooh, okay, I gotta figure out how to make a beer label. And so then teamed up with an amazing artist at the University of Oregon who is last year graduated from the marine science program. But she helped create this octopus and do some of these illustrations, and then we teamed up with a graphic designer in order to put the facts that I came up with onto a beer label that then was sold in Ninkasi. And we recently kind of made this more of a nationwide initiative, so I teamed up with my friend who is studying DNA in North Carolina, and we created a beer label there. And with the Ninkasi event, we did a little release event where we had small presentations talking about octopuses, which was a lot of fun. But again, it was kind of this self-contained. Like if you saw the flyer and you were excited about octopuses, then you went to the event, right? But this we hosted just on a random Saturday, and while it was still a big event, we really focused on drawing random people from the community that just normally go to this brewery. And then we had local policymakers and local scientists come and give talks about DNA, but then also some of the policy relevant aspects of doing this basic research. And so this is my friend JP who we're doing this with, and we got some funding through Research America in order to make brewing scientists a big nationwide initiative. And we're also partnering up with the nonprofit Science for Good in order to try and push this out, and we plan on having 10 to 15 pilot sites across the country where scientists are partnering up with local breweries in order to get science kind of where people don't expect it, and the community can just freely engage with it on their off time at the brewery whenever they want. So if that's something that anyone is interested in, let me know. Nice. And then we're kind of jumping to a completely different project, but one that ultimately has the same mission of kind of getting science where you least expect it and getting it just more naturally in society and out of these big four walls of university laboratories. And that is called Dreams of a Scientist, Lessons from the Sea. So this is a children's book that I've been working on for almost 2 years at this point, that is highlighting 20 active scientists that are real life scientists that I interviewed and talked to, and then incorporated both their image in person as well as their research and facts that they recently discovered into the book. And so here are those 20 scientists, but it's kind of almost sneakily embedded into this very Alice in Wonderland-esque storyline where it's just a girl who goes on a field trip to the ocean and then starts following all of these marine organisms through the deep sea.
When will this book be available?
You can scan this QR code, and there you can pre-order it, and also we've got merch. We actually have stickers here that Octopus sells, but we also have some pins and hats and stuff like that. And the book is kind of in its final stages. It's getting quite close, but you might maybe notice a couple of things here and there that we're tightening up and hoping to send to the producers or the manufacturers in a couple weeks, and then hopefully it'll be available in 6-ish weeks. So aiming before Christmas.
Good job.
Thank you all for listening. I will thank briefly just the team that has helped make the science as well as the book happen, as well as the various funding sources, because science is expensive, making a book is expensive, and couldn't do it without all these people helping emotionally and financially.
Nice. Good job.